fogapparel.com, Fraternity of Girth. I got my Save the Game shirt in the mail the other day. As always, super comfortable, super awesome design. So the Save the Game series was something that just kind of wrapped up. They're going to do another round of this, but your favorite Highland games that are now suffering because of quarantine and because of being kind of shuttered for the year, they have Fraternity of Girth has put together a program where you can buy a t-shirt that has custom made art that represents that games. Like, it would have been a game shirt, would have been like an awesome games shirt, but the proceeds from that go to support those games directly. So it's a cool thing they're doing for the community. So please, the next time a round of these support the game shirts comes out, please grab one. They're awesome, they look good, and honestly, they're way better and more wearable designs than you would get with a lot of the game shirts that are designed a lot of times by the festivals. So no offense to the people doing all the work out there, but look, Fog is a bunch of professionals, man. These are professional designers making good stuff, so make sure you grab that. Also, the 2020 Berserker Tour collection is live at fogapparel.com. You got the heavy metal shirt, you got the Heathen hoodie, you got the Fog of War unisex shirt, you got the heavy metal stickers, you got the Cause Conflict, the Fog of War stickers. You got all sorts of cool stuff on there, man. So go check it out. Use code HEAVYLIGHT. You're going to save 10% on anything you get there. All right, we got stuff to get through today. So, of course, like I say, it's my podcast. So the first thing we're going to get through is we're going to talk about me. We're going to talk about what I'm doing. So I'm recording. This is an early morning recording for the Friday episode because I am getting up and getting everything together to get ready to travel to Concan, Texas, where we have a hunting lease. We've been out there once this year. This is the last weekend of turkey season. So me and the boy, Evan, are going out there to take our last shot at getting a gobbler. So we're going to head out for 2 nights. We're going to camp out on the lease. We're going to cook some good food. We're going to have some good times. We're going to spot some wildlife. And if it's the right kind of wildlife, we're going to put some pellets into it. And then we're going to cook it up too. Probably bring it back home. Maybe, oh man, I would love it if we could double up because I want to cook one turkey, right off the bat. And I'd like to save one for Thanksgiving if we get a good sized gobbler. But that's really hoping for a lot. Let's just hope for one. Let's hope to see some. We saw a bunch of hens last time, but we could not get our eyes on any gobblers. We didn't have the lay of the land proper. So I'm going to go out and give it another shot. I'm messing around with a couple of different calls. For those of you that nerd out about hunting and calling, I'm going with a box call this time. I'm going to mix in the box call with the mouth call. I tend to do mouth call, diaphragm calling with turkeys, but I'm going to mix it up this time, see if I can get some different responses, see if I can, I'll try every trick in the book, basically. So I'm excited about that, but getting the recording out of the way now so we can have... I can have this off my conscience. I know how hurt you would be, but I didn't put out this Friday episode. So getting that out there now. So that's my plan for today. I'm going to hit the road, get 3 hours in the car with the boy where I forced him to not use any screens and he's got to talk to his dad. I'm the most evil father on the planet. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So that's what the second half of the day is going to be. And then this weekend, just be the outdoors, man. This is such a nice reprieve from the quarantine and from, being in the 4 walls or around the house and just, to the grocery store and back, whatever's needed, stuff like that. It's just so nice to get out and just completely change pace, change speed. It's also going to be hot out. So I don't know if you've ever done, I'm sure plenty of you have done hot camping. It's just, I would rather bear the cold. I know the heat is, and some of you can sleep in that. I think sleeping in a hot tent is 100 times worse than sleeping in the cold because, if it's cold, you can cover up, you can bundle up, you can layer up more, you can do more about it. When it's hot in the tent, you can only get so naked. You can only get so comfortable before you're just, completely naked and still sweating. So I don't know. That's life in Texas. It's spring turkey hunting. It's late spring turkey hunting. So we're pushing up into the 90s, but a little hot camping is on the horizon for us. I've been trying to take advantage of the nice weather out here and trying to get out and throw a little bit more since, we're not in the hell days of Texas summer yet. I've been trying to get out and take advantage of it. I got out and threw some hammer yesterday and I actually had posted this video on my Instagram. I used it as part of the pandemic games, posted on Facebook as well as my entry for that. Tossed a little light hammer. The thing was, I had no plans for that to be a pandemic games entry. I wasn't wearing the shirt or anything because I was going out to basically rebuild my hammer from the bottom up. I've always had, for a lightweight, I've had a competitive hammer, but I don't feel like I don't know, when I watch my hammer, I still don't feel like it's done well. All the things that I coach other people to do, I feel like I don't do. I feel like I just kind of make it up with spazziness and try to manufacture speed without great technique. So I was really trying to tear that down. What kind of led to that was watching a lot of video of Skylar Arneson, who, if you don't follow him, you definitely should. He's a great example of somebody that's doing something different with the hammer. And it's weird because I say that. It looks like he's doing something different with the hammer, but honestly, he's just kind of, I think he's moving the event forward, to be perfectly honest. He was a wire hammer thrower and a good one at that. And, came from the track and field world. Big, strong boy, of course, but he has, I can describe it here, and I will, but if you watch, you're definitely going to see some different style as opposed to the more classic. Like, we talk about, that's my phone falling off my lap. So we talk about Kyle Randall a lot on this, big old Scottish boy that throws huge hammers, and he's got a little bit more of a classic, you could call it. It's beautiful, but a classic Scottish hammer style. And if you compare that with Skylar, who throws similar distances, Skylar has a much more upright and kind of loose and relaxed and high orbit. Like, he really works on a lot of height in his orbit, and I think he feels like that gives him a bit of an edge. And and we didn't have extended conversations about it, but I feel like he's able to work with gravity a lot more and really drive down and sit down against the hammer as it comes out of the sky. And he also uses a dynamic start, which is more akin to what you would get in throwing the wire hammer, the Olympic hammer, because you can't really start that thing from a total static behind you pull like we do with the Scottish hammer. So there's a lot of things that I wanted to steal from him, but the main one that I wanted to work on was try to integrate a dynamic start. Dynamic meaning moving, static meaning sitting still, obviously. I wanted to integrate a dynamic start, and I wanted to work on getting more height on the ball, meaning the ball of the hammer, above my head. I wanted, instead of getting that kind of depressed, kind of lower dip in the orbit that happens behind people, and as Skylar so succinctly put it in our conversation, a lot of people, in his video, he actually posted a video about this discussion later, was that people get this kind of depression, this dip behind them. They lose connection with the implement when it's behind them. And what I liked about his, that really puts it best, is that he doesn't lose the connection when it's above his head and behind him. He maintains connection to it by extending his hips. Everybody talks about using their hips, and I use my hips in the hammer, and a lot of people do, but we don't really stay connected with our hips throughout every moment. And I think Skylar's done a great job of that by kind of changing the paradigm, by keeping, the knees more straight at the top instead of really pushing forward with the knees, as we're kind of a lot of us are taught to. And I'm kind of trying to break out of that mindset as well, as the pushing the knees forward. So there's a lot of real technical stuff going on there. But to circle back to why I was having that practice, I wanted to do all that stuff. I didn't go out there thinking I'm going to throw a completely different style and things are going to go great. I thought I want to integrate the dynamic start, and I want to get the ball higher when I start. I want to cast in higher. I want my first wind to be higher, and I want to continue to emphasize that. Mixed results. I got the dynamic start kind of down. I'm still going to mess with it, like when I put my hands on the implement and everything. I may just one-hand it like our buddy Skylar does, just because I noticed that does give you a little bit more freedom. It is not so tied to you and doesn't pull you around and end up too much behind you, et cetera, et cetera. But the height, I was getting the height, but I was doing it with my arms and my hands. And if you do anything with your arms and your hands in the hammer, especially if you move it around manipulating with your arms and hands, especially early in the throw, it's going to end up with you pulling it in with your arms. And if you watch that throw, I'm fighting against it the whole time. I don't have good length. I'm pulling it in the whole time. I'm leaning away with my torso, and I'm pushing out with the knees as opposed to what I wanted to work on. But I still threw a pretty good training PR. I think I threw 5 feet further than my best competition hammer. I've never really come to play on hammers. I've never thrown what I know that I can in hammers in competition, but I added a decent amount just by getting more height on the orbit. Even doing it wrong, I was able to add height. So I know something's there. I was happy with that. And I sort of half accomplished what I wanted to that day. I did a lot of drills. There were also I went live for a little while when I did this. If you saw, there were a lot of kids in the field. One in the field that I was throwing, one of them was my kid. So it actually kind of forced me to not throw, to stand and do drills and do like my throwback drills, my 5 winds, my 10 winds, to do all those things because I couldn't throw. And Aaron made a great comment. He was on the live stream for a little while too. And he said that it's nice when you get things like that, which give your ego a pass. Like, well, I would be throwing bombs right now, but I can't because all these kids in the field. So, I'll just do what I can. But instead of like me having to feed that ego monster, I just had to stand there and do drills. And I think it helped. It really did. I know it helped because that's how that works. But I did more drills and I did more variations, not even variations, just drills that I normally would. I spent more time on that entry, that throwback that I like to call it, when you pull the right elbow back and get the ball above you. I spent more time finding that, and I think it started to work. But I'm still using my arms and hands too much when I watch that video. So, look, I've made it very clear. I'm not afraid to post me doing technique badly. And I know that I coach, and I know that, there's a lot of people that I give technical input to, and there's a lot of people that, that work with me that look for that. And it's a great demonstration in my mind of, just because I know the right thing to do and I know what the right movement's going to be doesn't mean I always do it. It doesn't mean my technique is going to be clean and perfect just like I say. I'm human too, and I'm a non-track and field thrower that didn't come from a background of having professional coaching. I learned this stuff from other throwers and put it all together and have compiled it over the years. So I will say that I know what I should be doing, but can I do it? No. And looking at Skylar put a video up, kind of compounding on the stuff that he and I had talked about and that I had talked about as well. And I in no way have any problem with him saying, I saw Beach doing this and it wasn't quite right. Yeah, I know, man. Like, and he and I talked privately. Like, I don't have a problem not knowing and asking, hey, how do I do this? The dude throws 140 plus with a light hammer. Of course I'm going to ask him what the hell he's doing. But, I don't want to ever be like just because I coach and just because I get on a microphone and talk about the Highland Games, that does not mean that I have Highland Games and throwing figured out. I don't. I think the fun of this is that you guys get to come along and listen to me almost 10 years into the sport, still trying to figure it out. That's the cool part. And I think that's what makes me, if I may, pat myself on the back, it makes me effective as a coach a lot of times, is because I've been in it for so long and I'm still in it trying to figure stuff out. And I've kept copious notes and, like I said, compiled everything that has worked and everything that's, been functional along the way to get the throws to be better. That, I'm there with you. I've been in that same spot figuring it out with you. Not that other people doing this haven't either. It's just that's my particular style and that works. But I don't have it all figured out, guys. I'm constantly learning. And I hope if you're one of my heavy light athletes listening to this, I hope it brings you some level of comfort that I'm continuing to try to learn this sport and how we do it better. I'm continuing to grow. And if somebody's doing something what I consider, revolutionary is a big word, but it is. And it's funny because, the hammer revolves around you, right? That I consider revolutionary and kind of a game changer in the way that Skylar throws, you can be damn sure I'm going to be trying to figure out how to do it. If it works for me and if it works for different body types and people besides him, and it can be transported down the chain to newer throwers and they learn quicker how to throw better distances, you're damn right I'm going to be trying to learn. I'm going to check my ego and okay, yeah, I don't know how to do it. Let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. Let's figure this stuff out. So no, I do not have all throwing figured out. Like there's no aha moment if you're thinking like, oh man, well, this guy's coaching everybody, but actually Skylar's got to show him how to do it. Like, yeah, you're damn right he does. That's how I learned all this stuff in the first place. So, there's certainly not a gotcha in there for me. Like, I'll be the first one to tell you, I got a lot to learn. And like I said, it's a well-documented thing that, do as I say, not as I do. Because I can tell you all, even on the waist for distance or something like that, I can tell you all the things about, get it on your right on your entry. Make sure, you get the orbit here and make sure you're getting good sprint phase and you're not waiting too long for it to ride up your right side or whatever. I can tell you all that, and then I'll go fucking do it wrong in the field. Like, and I'll watch my own video and be like, yeah, you're spotting the way with your head. It rode up on your right side. And like, blah, 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 your right turn, blah, right foot, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's all. I can do that. You can exist in that duality. I'm perfectly fine being a technical hypocrite. I can live with that. But it was really cool working and kind of getting content out there with, like not just content. My throwing is just my throwing. It's my personal exercise, and it's something I like to share with everybody so there can be discussion and ridicule and whatever it may be. But I like that it inspired Skylar to get out there and make some content and make a post. But it keeps the discussion going. So the people that are fans of his, that follow him, they can see okay, that's a cool conversation. Let me look at what Beach was doing, what he was doing wrong, and then let's see how that compares. Maybe that's something that I can pick up on too. It just gets more content and discussion out there. And that is something that we are, as a sport, severely lacking. And it's funny, you think about it, and that's one of my motivations for doing all the shit that I do. This podcast, the coaching, the videos, everything, the writing books. That's why I do it. I love this shit. I love this silly, stupid sport, and I've said it a million times. I mean, there's not a lot of things that'll make me get on a microphone and write songs about it to make fun of it, but continue coming back week after week doing it. And that's one of these things. I love this shit. I love this stupid little world. I love this stupid little sport. And the reason I do it is because there's a dearth of content. There's an extreme lack of content for us as compared to other strength sports that attract, obviously they attract more athletes, but at least comparable numbers. Like I could find more videos on highlight technique than I could find on Highland Games probably. And, God bless the people that are out there doing it that are not me. Like, the Matts of the world, the Dans of the world, the John Odens of the world, the people that are at least trying to put something into the ether. The Ryan Stewarts, the Scott Farrs, the people, excuse me, that are trying to get things out there, that are trying to teach people, that are trying to share whatever they've picked up, whatever nuggets they've picked up, because there's such a lack of it. And I spent some time really thinking about why. There's lots of reasons I guess you can think of. It's not profitable. And I guess that's one reason it hurts a lot of people. But that hasn't stopped the powerlifting and strongman community. That hasn't stopped the Olympic weightlifting community for putting out good content and good coaching and everything. It hasn't stopped them, not just because it's not profitable. But I don't know. You got things like Juggernaut. You got things like Elite FTS. You have things like... who else is putting out a ton of content? Even Steffi Cohen, Hybrid Performance is putting out a lot. Like, what's the motivation there? And some of it is financial because there are sponsors, there are supplement companies, gear companies that are looking to throw money behind those things, and that doesn't exist as much here. Shout out to Fraternity of Girth and Sport Kilt for being behind the sport and putting their money where their mouth is, because we need people like that. That's one of the things that was kind of the vision with Throw Bros, is to put money back into the sport in the best way that we can. But, at the same time, I think Throw Bros, if I'm being totally honest, spends more time funding my creation of content than it does going outwards, just because of, there's only so many dollars to go around, and the stuff we make is sometimes expensive to make. We do our best to kind of fund content as best we can, but there's not a lot. At the same time, there's not a lot of people beating down the door to ask for sponsorship on content either. It's just not there. And, maybe the personalities aren't there. I don't know. Maybe they're just so few and far between. It could just be a numbers game. We don't have enough participation. There's just not, if 1 out of every 100 people is going to create content, maybe there's just not enough hundreds of people doing it. 1 out of every 1,000 is going to do it. Maybe there's not enough thousands of people. That could very well be it. But yeah, that's why I think, it was so important to see, what Matt and Dan and that generation of people, the Pekoskis, what they did by putting content out there, but in some way, shape, or form is super important. That there's just not a lot of people. And, to give you this too, Highland Games is very technical comparatively. Obviously powerlifting, that's the model I use the most because I think there's so much content out there for it. But, powerlifting is obviously technical as well. But I think it's technical in a different way in that there's still only 3 movements, and they are fundamentally, they're barbell movements. And so I think a lot of that comes down to, their technical side also comes down to the programming side, but obviously there's a lot of technique work, but I don't think it can rival anywhere in terms of how technical the Highland Games is across 9 different events. And to speak with any authority on that, requires experience, or it requires, a high level education in the fundamentals of it. And in the education of the fundamentals, nowhere in your, in a CSCS program or, a kinesiology program, are they really talking about the mechanics of kilted sport throwing. It's just not coming up. There's not a lot of research about it. There, the best we can borrow from is the track and field world. But there's not a lot of people that you consider like high level. Most of the people that have been revered as Highland Games coaches come from the world of track and field. They use the track and field knowledge, or, that are revered as coaches, they use that track and field knowledge. And I like to think what I do differently is that I built my idea of how to approach the Highland Games more ground up as a 9-event weird festival strength sport show. Like my coaching and my book and stuff that I'm continuing to make comes from that perspective of, hey, I'm not a shot put coach trying to teach you how to carry those fundamentals across all 9 of our events. I'm a Highland Games coach. And just as an aside, that I think that's a perspective that I bring that may be helpful going forward and may help more people feel like they can put out content there. It's like, you don't have to be these famed track and field coaches, or you don't have to be like a high level track and field athlete and have, all that research and all those facilities behind you for all those years before you can speak on the Highland Games. We're not that. It's not, I've said in many different ways, shapes, and forms that this is not track and field. It has some things in common, but it is a different sport. It is competed differently. It requires different attributes to be successful across all 9 than it does to be successful in 1, 2, or sometimes 3, like it is in track and field. Not that those athletes couldn't translate. Of course they could. They could come demolish us, but it does require a different training paradigm, a different preparation. So there's, I don't know, that's part of the laundry list of reasons why there isn't as much content. I think also that this is a sport still that's not the first stop on the train, on the trip. Is that the best way to say that? It's not the first station that people stop on after they finish high school and college sports. I think this is an older person's sport. After they settle in and get all their demons out or whatever with the barbell or with strongman implements or whatever, sometimes they settle into this because they like the pace and they like how slow and relaxed it is comparatively. And I think, content is a young person's game. Like I was one of the younger people putting content out, and I was in my mid-30s when I really started doing it. I'm 40 now. I'm a man. I'm 40. And I'm, doing a podcast and putting out YouTube videos and stuff like that where, I don't know, I should just be fly fishing all the time probably and collecting Nike Monarchs or debating the merits of Nike Monarchs versus New Balance. That's a serious debate. That's going to have to be a separate episode though. But content is more of a young person's game. And you're seeing that, I guess, in those other sports like powerlifting and Olympic lifting, strongman, stuff like that. I guess strongman doesn't have as much content as those other two. I keep saying that, but I think about it. I just don't see as much content out there for it. But powerlifting for sure has done a great job with the amount of content that they put in. And, general fitness or, aesthetic kind of training has mountains upon mountains upon mountains because there's industries and there's entire... there's the psyche of the human being built into that and for the appearance and vanity stuff. And, they're on a different level than us. That's, we have most of what we do and, and the strength sports kind of piggybacks off of the popularity of, bodybuilding and aesthetic and general fitness training. Let's be honest with ourselves. If those things weren't, like billion-dollar industries, multi-billion-dollar industries, then we wouldn't really have the space to operate how we do. I don't think we'd have the attraction of the athletes. I think, it's safe to say we piggyback a little off those. But, Highland Games is sort of a strength sports retirement age. That's why the Masters class is so vibrant, especially right now, is because a lot of people don't come to this till they're in their 30s, and then they do it for a while like I did, and then they kind of pass into the Masters class. And I think by that time you're established as a person. Normally you have a profession, you got responsibility, kids, maybe grandkids, mortgages, stuff like that, and car payments to make, and you got real life responsibilities, and keeping your YouTube channel curated isn't the top on your list. I think that's maybe one, if I really, now that I'm saying it out loud, I didn't think about that as a thing as I started this episode, but I think that's a big part of it. I think that's, I see that I'm an anomaly, I guess, in that regard, in that I do have real life responsibilities and kids and mortgages and relationships. And, I am an adult, a true one, but I do I try to put content out there. But, it is also tied to my profession, what I do. And so that it makes sense, me continuing to put out content is not just good for the sport and the presence of content. It's good for me personally too. So I think I've been lucky enough to be able to wrap that into part of my livelihood, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. Maybe as we continue to see, as we've talked about in previous episodes, we see more young people come to the sport, you'll see better content start to get made and more content. But there's that balance, right? Because they have to be young, but they also have to be knowledgeable enough and around it long enough to be able to create content with some authority. But not always, though. Sometimes it just needs to be vlogs, and sometimes that's not even a thing anymore, really. But like it just needs to be interesting, Instagram stories, content that comes out about their journey through it, and we'll be down for it. And that's, a lot of the Throw Bros athletes, the newest one in particular, Jarvina Rout, she's great at that. She may not be coming at you from a place of authority. She's a great thrower, by the way, but like she may not be coming at you from a place of authority, like here's how you should do all this stuff, but it's fun to watch her do it. And I think that's such a big part. She's an interesting, young, like fascinating person, that has, creates content that makes you want to watch and makes you chuckle, makes you laugh. Felicia's the same way. Gary's the same way. Like they create all this stuff to make you, want to get involved with them as people. And I think maybe that's the key more than it is like coming from an area of expertise. Maybe it's more about like showing the journey in a way that other people can relate to, instead of it just being like, oh, that's a weird thing I've never seen before. Instead, it's like, oh, I am like that person as well, and I have a similar background. Maybe I could do this too, or I want to be like that. Maybe that's the goal in the long run. I think some of that's what kind of happened in the lightweight class, to be honest, is why we have this explosion of lightweight athletes, is because you had people like me, you had people like John, you had people like Phil that were a little more outspoken and were just not afraid to be ourselves about doing this, and not trying to not hiding in the shadows and being apologetic for not being bigger. That we just say like, no, this is the size that we happen to be. We're smaller, we're athletic, and we like this sport and we want to do it really, really well. And we don't give a shit. Like we're just going to be ourselves, and we're going to be, out and out about it. And we're not going to be apologetic about not being the bigger class and everything. And I think that's sort of something you're seeing with the women's class now too. And speaking of which, there was that awesome article. This is something that was on my show notes to talk about. Yes, I do show notes to myself. It's weird, I know. It's like I'm my own little producer. It's what you get with a one-man show. Do it all. And speaking of do it all or do a lot, I watched that movie Doolittle, the Robert Downey Jr. vehicle, last night with the kids. That was one of the worst train wrecks of a big budget movie I've ever seen in my life. $175 million budget for that pile of shit. It was so bad. And Robert Downey Jr.'s accent and his delivery and the sound dubbing was so bad. It was so awful. If you watch that movie, he tries to do a Welsh accent. It does not go well. But they also, you could tell every line in that movie, there was no sound on set that was used. There was no live sound. It was all dubbed later. And so you can see there are times, it feels like you're watching like a weird foreign language dub of a film when you're watching it. And the writing was so bad. The dialogue was so bad. The plot was incomprehensible. It was visually just stupid looking. It was terrible. Yeah, it was bad. But what reminded me of that was NPR did a review, and I'm trying to remember how they titled it. It said, Doolittle does a lot and all badly. That's so succinct and wonderful. Well written, whoever wrote that review. But that's what you're getting here. I do a lot, and I do it badly. But yeah, this article that came out was so cool. I shared it on social media as well. It's by SB Nation. So SB Nation is a sports kind of blogging network that's it's owned by Vox Media. And so they kind of spread into the world of obscure sports once in a while. So I think it's cool that they did this. But they did an article, and kudos to this author, by the way, Shayna Montanari. She did a good job really actually getting into it and digging into the culture and the people, and not just doing the surface like the Scottish Highland Games is blah, 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 and doing the definition thing and saying about how weird and wild and I don't know, the same article we always get, right? She actually talked about the characters, the women that she met, and she showed an understanding of kind of the travel culture and the camaraderie and why it's attractive and what it is. She talked about what it is without doing the whole paragraph full of like what the Highland Games is. It was good. It was a good read. It kept you reading because it didn't just sum it up quickly and then give you a bunch of garbage forever. Like it focused on some of the athletes. So I like that. I will say that the article may be a little clickbaity because it doesn't, but again, it's not like super clickbaity. It's not like, like porn stars tried Highland Games. It's not like that, but it's like, basically the women of the Scottish Highland Games, why women are flocking to one of the oldest, most manly sports in the world. It doesn't actually in a direct way address like why there's been such an influx of women. It broadly addresses it. But I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just saying that's how titles go in journalism now, right? That's kind of how it has to go. It's like, oh, there's people flocking to something. Well, I better watch it. It's more like, hey, here's a good rundown and a description of the culture and why this sport is important to these women, I think. And it's not so much about like we've seen 50,000 more women. It's not just that. Yes, there is growth, but I don't think it's exactly about that. But to kind of hit the highlights of this article, she talks to a lot of different athletes, and I'm trying to remember where she was when she. It's hard to get an exact bead on exactly where she was. I think I saw it at some point in the game, but she focuses on the cover of the band of the article is Katie Horgan, which is rad. She's in the middle of throwing the Scottish hammer, so that's cool. A couple of stains on the shirt there, Katie. I don't know. I want to wipe your tacky on the shirt next time. But yeah, so Katie looking like a badass. And then she talked about H-Mac, Heather McDonald. And then who else did she talk about in this? Michelle Crownhart, who is rad and has been doing this forever. So that's awesome that she understood that. She understood the importance of somebody like Michelle. And I think that's really cool. She kind of got that. That having somebody that's been doing it that long, that's clearly a pioneer. That's somebody that's really jumping in. She talks Amara Saldate. Who else does she talk about in here? I just like to scan for the names, the people that I know. She talked about somebody else. She talked about Tim. How he created the Denny Stones this last year. Let's see. I'm scanning really fast here. Like I read it before, but I'm trying to look for names. And so here's other things that I dig that she did spend some time talking about, like the different classes and how, there's kind of you pick it yourself. You kind of pick your own adventure in the Highland Games. You kind of just organize yourself. She talks about masters athletes. She talks about lightweights. She talks about the pro distinction and how, and for women, that's incredibly difficult because are you a pro or are you an amateur? Do you skip back and forth? And yes, we do. Yeah, and did talk about the pay disparity and everything. And I think H-Mac mentioned that. There's a quote. She says, excuse me, I'm going to clear my throat here, but she's talking about the Phoenix Games. She wants to be invited back as a pro to the Scottish Highland Gathering and Games in Pleasanton, California, which are the largest in the country. Until recently, prize money was better for pro men and women. If you don't remember, Steve Conway just recently changed it to where the prize money is. They're going to be doing equal payout for those games, which I think is awesome. And Heather says, it's a huge deal. For a long time, we were like, what the heck? Hey, watch the language there, H-Mac. Why are we getting $50 for fifth place? And then the fifth place for the men gets like $600. That's ridiculous. Yeah, and so that's that cuts to the heart of, it doesn't spend a whole lot of time on the pay inequity. And that's a good and bad thing in the article. It's good that it got brought up, but I think it may be spending a little bit more time on why things are the way they are and how this has traditionally been a male-dominated sport, and that shift is kind of happening slowly, more quickly in the past couple of years, which is kind of rad because we have more and better women now throwing. So it's bad in the sense that it doesn't spend that much time on it, but it's good in that it does not harp on it, because I think the one thing, when we're already fringiest of the fringe, I think if you spend too much time talking about the problems that we have, it's going to drive people away. But I think it's good that it still got addressed. It kind of jumps all over the place. I think she's definitely the Phoenix Highland Games. She's talking about it. So, because the article opens talking about Steel Indian School Park in downtown Phoenix. I'm trying to give I don't want to just read the article to you. I want to give my general thoughts about it, but I think there's some points that I need to hit. I think talking about Tim in Phoenix is a really cool thing. His replica of the Denny Stones, I think, is cool. And this line I love. This is what I was looking for. Being a Highland Games athlete can feel like a lifestyle more than a hobby, filling the hours outside of day jobs. And sadly, because of the coronavirus pandemic, most of the fun for this year is likely over. But I really do like that. It shows that this girl, Shayna, she really kind of understands that this is a community more than it is just like, because it's easy to look at us on the field and see like, oh, these people that just showed up to try this today, and some are good, some are not. Like, it's until you get into it, you don't understand, like, this is a lot of the same people that travel or that, throw in the same region, that all work together, that know each other. And I think, if I can try to get inside the author's head, I think one of the things that she's trying to show is that community sense and that, general idea that there's a sense of some, like, I don't know where it is in the article, but somebody, I think it's HMAC, uses the Isle of Misfit Toys thing. Like, that's kind of what we feel like. And like, all of a sudden realizing that like you have things in common with people, that, you are a strength athlete, especially as a woman, that, you're bigger, you're stronger, you don't fit into a certain box in terms of appearance or what people expect from strength sports athletes or women in general. And just realizing that through this community, you're finding other women like you that are strong and like throwing stuff and that like this culture and that like being part of this and being integrated into it, being welcomed into it, I think is a big deal. And man, it's pollen season in Texas. I apologize. It's going to make its way up. But yeah, I think what she's trying to establish in that is that sense of community is drawing more women to it. And it's drawing different types of women. And it's drawing, women that have this particular attraction to this culture of strength, this culture of accomplishment and competition. But at the same time, like, it's now showing like, they're going to come from different backgrounds. And I thought it was really nice that instead of just doing a single character study or just saying how cool, like kind of not doing a how cool is it that women are just throwing in this. She's connecting dots and she's giving you quick backgrounds on these women so you get a picture of who they are and how they got to the games, or why they were drawn to the games. And I don't know. I think that's, while it's not like the title says, it's not flocking. It's not like the idea that, like, oh, you wouldn't believe that this is something going on under your nose, that thousands of women are doing this and you haven't been told about it. It's not like that. But I think it's giving, like, if you wanted to do an advertisement, if you had a friend and she was interested, you were trying to get her interested in the Highland Games, I think you get her to read this and you get her to show that it's not just about like, you got to go out and you got to compete in a bunch of dumb throwing events. And, if you're really strong, you might win, or if you really throw well, you might win, or you might lose. And it's not just about that. You might help somebody find their club. You might help somebody find their tribe. And I think that's something that maybe for me as a man felt more automatic going into the Highland Games, because I came from this, male dominated culture of team sports and then strength sports and stuff like that. And I think we are maybe a little bit more wired for it, but also I think it was built to be more welcoming of that because this was a man's endeavor. And I think what Shayna did that was really good with this article, and all the women that she talked to, I think they had kind of an implicit understanding of, why it's important to have exposure, speak to the media, do interviews, things like this. But I think it's sort of showing that there is a place for women. This is, how do I put this? I'm rambling a little bit, but, and plus I've got a kid screaming outside the door that sounds like they're going to come in. So, that's always a danger from the home studio here. But yeah, instead of that, like implicit, like, this is for dudes, like I think it's helping to dispel that, but not in like a protesting way of saying like, well, this is not just for dudes, this is for us. Like, it's easy to typify what women do when they go into a sport like the Highland Games. It's easy to stereotype it and think, I guess if you're kind of a cocksucker, this is what you think. Not, okay, cocksucker. I mean, some, cocksucker's not necessarily bad, if you take pride in being great at it. But I mean, if you're that kind of personality that, like, oh, they're just doing this like as a protest to say like, well, women can do it too. That's not what it's about, man. Like, it's women want to do this and they want the same things that we want. These women competitors want the same thing that we want. They want the sport to grow. They want to have good competition. They want the crowd to cheer for them. They want a chance to go pro. They want to feel fucking cool and wear a kilt and throw stuff. They just want the same shit. It's not like they're going to come take it away from you. The fact that women and men are getting paid even at shows now, or at games now, it doesn't take away from your enjoyment of the sport for them to do that. And it doesn't change. It doesn't, the tradition or whatever. It doesn't, none of that shit matters. If you're one of those people that thinks that shit matters, stop. Or just do something else where, I don't know, you can have your own traditions that are dumb and closed-minded, I guess. But it doesn't matter. We're making up all the traditions on the fly a lot of times with this stuff anyway. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, it's true. We've only been doing it for a little over 100 years here in in North America, and we're making shit up on the fly anyway. Should we add sheaf in there? Yeah, sure, whatever. We do it in other stuff. So the fact that you want to have lightweights, you want to have women, you want to have youth. You want to have, if you want to have trans athletes at some point and have that battle, whatever. I don't care. We're making all this shit up on the fly anyway. So, just be cool about it. If somebody has the same passion as you, just be fucking happy that we have, if there's 50 more women that want to come into the sport for whatever reason they want to, just be fucking happy that 50 more people are coming into your sport and maybe getting some shine on it and getting SB Nation to write an article about it, because they're sure is not writing an article about my boring middle-aged ass. So get some badass women out there to get articles written about them. That's all I got on that. But you know what? One thing I did notice in this article, which featured prominently on our friend Katie Horgan at the top and many of the other athletes, sport kilt. They're all wearing sport kilts. Sport Kilt is the #1 kilt brand for Highland Games athletes and anybody involved in the Highland Games. They got it all, man. They got the socks, they got the flashes if you're into that, if you want to be more traditional. They got kilt in all sort of tartans. They got the Henderson tartan, which is the one that I wear. I do the Works kilt. I have the Henderson tartan kilt with the fringe and the buckles. And I'm sorry, it's the coolest kilt on the field because, one, it's sport kilt, and two, because it's mine. So, but they got everything. If you want to go more traditional, do the sporran, you want the Highlander shirt, you want the hats, you want everything, Sport Kilt has it all. Great company, always supports the game. They put their money where their mouth is when it comes to the Highland Games. So turn right back around, support them as well. Go to sportkilt.com, use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% on anything you purchase. So I haven't done this in a while, but I can go into NASGA and look at some of the stuff that happened in March. A lot of this stuff is just people throwing on their own or doing pandemic games entries and stuff like that. And I was linked to a discussion thread on the NASGA forums about, it was the administrator, Craig Smith, let's go ahead and say it. He was talking about the pandemic games entries and saying what the hell are people doing, why are you putting them in there, why are you putting in your pandemics games entries and stuff like that. I understand, man. That guy's the admin of this database, the only one that's left standing, basically, the only one doing any work on it. And he's seeing a bunch of people just post solo scores or practices at home. So it's weird. I can be a hypocrite on this one because I probably told people to enter them in NASGA. I'm pretty sure I did. Just because, put them in, put your numbers on, whatever. But I also didn't guarantee they wouldn't just be removed. So, I don't know. Put them in if you want to, I guess. But just understand that somebody like Craig is also probably going to have a problem with that and take them out. It's not really, as it's kind of grown and evolved as well. I realize this pandemic games is not really about scores in NASGA, because nobody's honestly going to look at when they're putting together invites next year and be like, oh, well, this guy threw a 125 hammer at home, so I'll probably count that one. It was just him versus himself, but I'll put that one. I'll take that into consideration. It's not going to be the case. Some people just really like seeing the thing. They want it recognized. They want it put up there, and they want to see I think some of this is just the curiosity of okay, if I had gone to competitions and got my numbers in NASGA, where would I have ended up? Where would I have been? I think, personally, it doesn't matter because NASGA is just for us, by us, in the smallest possible niche way ever. There's nobody from the outside looking in that's like, oh, well, that's what this is meaningful. So if people put in their pandemic game scores, I don't know, put them in there with an asterisk or something. Who really gives a shit? But I'm also not going to be mad at Craig for being mad at it. I get it. He's doing a lot more work on this than I am. I can just sit on a microphone and say, hey, put your shit in NASGA. that he has to actually deal with it. So, yeah, I can understand that. But it's also weird going on the NASGA message board. That was strange. Going to a forum post in 2020. That was something. There's still people keeping training logs. Jeff Cass keeps a training log. Who else keeps a fucking training log on NASGA anymore? Let's see. Jeff Cast, Tom Lawrence, Andy Crowley, Luke Crowley, John Clark, Justin Blatnick. You're still keeping a training log on NASGA? Dude, give up the ghost, man. What are you doing? Peter Doyle. Peter Doyle started one. Look at him. I wonder if he abandoned it. Yeah, it looks like the last post was in October of 19. Good for you, Peter. That's all you need, man. All right, well, this edition is going to be cut off early because Leah has burst into the room and decided that she probably needs another bowl of cereal. So, or maybe some fruit. Do you want more food? Is that why you came in?
It's something different.
What is it?
I want to play Kidaway on the iPad.
Oh, you want to play the iPad. That is classic kid quarantine stuff. But you know we're not going to do that right now, right?
I want to.
You haven't even gotten dressed yet. I know you want to.
Daddy?
Yeah?
What's in here?
That's a cabinet. So you haven't gotten dressed. You haven't brushed your teeth.
And where's the key that goes to it?
Oh, I'm not telling you.
Tell me.
I'm not going to tell you.
Tell me.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm not giving in to the demands of a kid who's standing there in monkey pajamas trying to tell me what to do. You got monkey jammies on. Who you telling what to do? All right, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye. Heavy Light is brought to you by Throw Bros. Throw Bros is the only online store for Highland Games athletes. Gear up, get throwing. Use code HEAVYLIGHT, all one word. You're going to save 10% at throwbros.com.